Lee Gordon was an American showbiz promoter who had a notable career in Australia and was instrumental in promoting jazz and rock music in the country. And yet his final years were steeped in one struggle after the next. He sadly died early at age 40, and his death is still shrouded in mystery. Let's look back at Lee Gordon's incredible life and career and his mysterious death. Lee Gordon's early life and career. Lee Gordon was born Leon Lazar Gavorshner. There are many conflicting reports of when he was born, but it's often accepted he was born March 8, 1923 in Detroit. He went to Highland Park High School and went on to receive a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Miami. Soon after that, he began his career promoting entertainers. He helped present a jazz concert at an ice skating rink in Muskegon, Michigan. Later, he worked with famous publicist Ben F. Reyes to organize a project called Shakespeare in the Round. He also briefly worked with a traveling carnival company called Royal American Shows based in Tampa, Florida. In the mid-40s, Gordon emigrated from the U.S. to try a variety of businesses abroad. He worked for a direct mail business in Lima, Peru, and then later moved to Havana, Cuba, where he started a business exporting cigars and roses to the U.S. While in Cuba, he discovered Havana's famous Tropicana Club. It was during this time he began booking American acts to travel to Havana to perform at the nightclub. While he was a versatile entrepreneur, it was clear he was most passionate about promoting entertainers. He soon emigrated to Australia to try his luck there. But before moving to the land down under, he returned to the U.S., and his activities during this time are a bit mysterious. Lee Gordon was known to give various accounts on his life, and often these seemed to change over time, and occasionally contradicted his previous statements. He apparently returned to the U.S. in the late 40s and remained in the country until his emigration to Australia in 1953. One story states that Lee had opened a chain of House of Grahams and House of TV stores throughout the U.S. It stated he was put out of business by the U.S. Electrical Retailers Association and lost a lot of money. But another story states that Lee was successful in this business venture and sold his stores for $550,000. It's claimed that he lost his fortune through various enterprises relating to music promotion. This particular story then states he emigrated to Canada to start a business selling TVs. In one story, his friend Arthur Shergan, a promoter from Detroit, urged Lee to emigrate to Australia to try his luck at entertainment promotion. In another story, he met an Australian car salesman in Toronto who convinced him to move to Australia. We don't know how he got to Australia, but he eventually did, and he became a household name. Before we tell you more about Lee Gordon's life and career, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. Lee's Australian career. Lee Gordon arrived in Sydney, Australia on September 30th, 1953. He eventually settled in the suburb of Point Piper, where he lived until he left Australia in 1962. His first business there was a marketing film that focused on promoting an Australian furniture retailer, Royal Art Furnishings. He succeeded in this venture and helped the company sell lots of furniture and appliances. Due to his high earnings, he realized he had a gift for marketing and decided to try once again to become an entertainment promoter. As he was passionate about music, especially jazz and the new genre of rock and roll, he decided to promote and plan music concerts. He still had connections in the American music world and helped bring artists from the States to Australia. Through his company, The Big Show, he helped introduce Australians to many prominent artists from America and other Western countries. Before long, Lee had become a household name in Australia. He helped book the Beatles for their only Australian tour. He also booked Frank Sinatra for a tour there. One of the most popular concerts organized by Lee Gordon included Bill Haley and the Comets, Freddie Bell and the Bellboys, the Platters, Laverne Baker, and Big Joe Turner. Lee Gordon also wasn't afraid to challenge social attitudes and even laws. During Australia's White Australia policy, which prohibited non-European people from migrating to the country, he introduced Australians to some of America's most popular black entertainers. He booked performers like Ella Fitzgerald, Lionel Hampton, Louis Armstrong, Nat King Cole, Harry Belafonte, and countless others to perform in Australia. No doubt he deserves credit for helping to break racial barriers in the country. Apart from booking musical acts, he was also a huge comedy fan and booked performances by famous American comics. These included Abbott and Costello and even Bob Hope. But one of his biggest risks was when he brought comedian Lenny Bruce down to Australia. Bruce was at the height of his career, but also the height of his controversy. He had garnered a reputation as a brilliant comedian who wasn't afraid to challenge taboos and use profane language. Even in Australia, there was some backlash towards Lenny Bruce. But Lee booked Lenny Bruce anyways, as he and Lenny had never been afraid of challenging audiences. Lee was also involved in managing talent. He served as the manager for Australian rock and roll star Johnny O'Keefe and helped launch his career. Lee also wished to manage Elvis Presley and bring him to Australia, but this never came to fruition. He helped discover Australian singer Diana Trask and even opened an exotic nightclub called Lee's of Woollera. Here he introduced the rather puritanical Australian society to performers they weren't used to, including Cossinelle, the French transgender singer and performer. Towards the end of his career in Australia, Lee set up Leadin' Records, which released music. Some of his early releases included Oh Oh, I'm Falling in Love Again by Jimmie Rodgers and Rockin' Robin by Bobby Day. But shortly after Leadin' Records was set up, Lee handed the management over to two of his colleagues and disappeared to the U.S. Details aren't exactly clear about what he was doing in the U.S., but it's believed he suffered a nervous breakdown. He eventually returned to Australia before leaving in 1962. Lee's death and legacy. While there isn't any hard evidence, it's believed that while he lived in Australia, Lee Gordon had connections with organized crime there. Some of his tours and concerts weren't as successful, including the performances by Bob Hope. He opened another drag club, and this wasn't a huge success either. His booking of Lenny Bruce's stand-up had mixed results. Lenny had success at some nightclubs, but was unable to find gigs in others. At many of his performances, there was a large police presence, just in case Lenny made any obscene jokes. Lee was deeply in debt, and his businesses were no longer the successes they once were. Some of the details during his last months are a bit fuzzy. He apparently filed for bankruptcy in Australia, but it was denied. Around this time, he began abusing drugs and was eventually arrested and put in Sydney jail. He was released on bail the next day and fled Australia forever. He was due to appear in an Australian court due to his drug possession. He fled to the U.S. and later to London. His wife Arlene and their baby daughter eventually left Australia to meet Lee in London. He was found dead in his London hotel room November 7, 1963. He was 40 years old. The official cause of death was coronary occlusion, though to this day many are skeptical of how he actually died. For some, his legacy is sadly forgotten. For others, one can't imagine live entertainment in Australia without him. His life was tragically cut short and mysterious, but it's one worth remembering and celebrating. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think promoters like Lee Gordon deserve more credit for introducing us to great entertainers? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.